It was a dreary night when the rain beat incessantly against the window pane, as if trying to cleanse the city of its sins. Nursing a bitter cup of coffee in the quiet cafe, I tried to drown my thoughts in the hum of low conversations and the soft jazz that whispered through the speakers. That's when I saw him, the fortune teller. He was an anomaly, dressed in a long, tattered coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his eyes, sitting alone in a dim corner. A small, worn sign on his table whispered in the glow of the candle, "Discover your destiny." Driven by a mixture of skepticism and a quiet desperation for anything that might disrupt the monotony of my days, I approached him. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, my voice almost lost in the swell of a saxophone solo. He nodded slowly, his face still hidden beneath the hat. As I sat, he pushed a small, velvet-covered box toward me. "Pick one," he said, his voice raspy, like the rustle of dry leaves. Inside the box, I found a collection of ancient-looking tarot cards. I hesitated, then drew one. The moon. I laid it on the table. He finally looked up. His eyes were startlingly clear, the kind that seemed to pierce through to the soul, seeing its every hidden corner. "The moon," he murmured, "a reflection of fears and illusions. Be wary of deceits, or perhaps deceiving yourself." I scoffed lightly. "I'm not sure I believe in this stuff." "Belief is not a requirement for truth," he replied, his gaze never wavering from mine. He began to shuffle the deck again, the cards flipping with a smooth, rhythmic precision. He stopped abruptly and spread them out before me, face down. "Choose another." This time I pulled the Tower. Catastrophe, sudden upheaval, chaos. His fingers trembled slightly as he placed the card next to the moon. "A storm is coming in your life, one that may shake the very foundations of your world," he said softly. I felt a chill, despite the warmth of the cafe. "Is there a way to avoid it?" "Some storms must be weathered," he replied, gathering the cards. His cryptic words lingered in the air as the candle between us flickered. He seemed to grow larger, the shadows stretching his form until it merged with the darkness of the cafe. "Another card?" he whispered. Reluctantly, I drew another card. Death. I froze, the image of the skeletal figure on horseback staring back at me, mocking my fear. "The end of one phase, the beginning of another. A transformation," he said, noting my alarm. "It's not always literal." As he spoke, the cafe seemed to grow colder. His face became more gaunt, his eyes deeper. I realized with a start that the other patrons had left. It was just us, enveloped in a silence that was thick with my growing dread. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice unsteady. "A mere messenger," he replied, his smile thin. "Would you like to continue, or are you satisfied with the glimpse of what's to come?" I should have left then, but curiosity, that insidious, whispering seducer, urged me to stay. "One more," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He nodded, an almost imperceptible motion, and fanned the cards out with a deliberate slowness. I drew again. The devil. "Obsession, bondage to material, the shadow self," he intoned. His eyes were no longer merely piercing. They burned with an intensity that felt invasive, as if he were rearranging my very thoughts. As I looked at the card, the image began to move, the chains rattling and the devil's eyes glowing red. I blinked, shaking my head, sure my eyes were deceiving me. "This isn't real," I said, pushing the card away. "All things perceived are as real as they are believed," he replied cryptically. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the old cafe floor. "I need to leave." "As you wish," he said calmly. "But remember, the cards never lie." Rushing out into the rainy night, I felt his eyes on my back. The weight of his predictions hung heavy in my mind. The street was deserted, the usual nightlife seemingly swallowed by the shadows. Heart pounding, I continued home, the rain soaking through my clothes. When I finally reached my apartment, I was trembling, not just from the cold, but from the fear that something had followed me from the cafe. That night, I couldn't sleep well, feeling restless. The cards, especially the devil, haunted me. As dawn approached, I was feeling exhausted and my entire body was aching. I got up and tried to convince myself that it was all just a bad dream. I caught my reflection in a mirror, expecting to see my haggard, sleepless face. However, I saw it. A flash of red in my eyes. My eyes were glowing red. Terrified, I stepped back, stumbling over a chair. As I fell, my eyes caught the moon, full and bright, illuminating my room with a ghostly light. The tarot card's warning echoed in my mind. Be wary of deceits or perhaps deceiving yourself.